Today at the Strom Entrepreneurial Center, we will have Julie here talking to us. She is the coordinator for Monarch Teach. She will be talking about management and leadership organizations.
Hi, good afternoon. I guess it's already afternoon. And yes, I am going to talk to you today about what I call extreme leadership. And I shouldn't say I call it. We'll talk a little bit about my story and explain to you kind of how I started doing leadership development work. And so let's go on to my story so you kind of understand. So let's see. There we go. I graduated from Longwood University with my undergraduate degree in teaching. So I was certified to teach middle school math, crazy as it is, middle school math, grades K through 8. Okay. And so I got, that's what my undergraduate degree was in. But got to college and got really active in my sorority. And I know that's like one of those things. It was one of those things I just fell into and was like, oh, I wish I could major in sorority because I spent more time doing that than I did actually in classes and really enjoyed it. And found that you could do, student activities and be like that kind of person and really enjoyed it. And then graduated from Longwood and actually came and did a year of leadership development. So I was a leadership consultant for my sorority national, traveled around the country for a year. I lived out of a suitcase and was on 32 college campuses in 1 year. So that I literally went from campus to campus to campus and spent a week with each chapter and helped them with whatever issues they had going on, anything from budget to we don't know how to recruit people to whatever issues they had going on. And then I actually was like, okay, after being out for a year, all over the campus, I wanted to come home. And Norfolk is my home, and this is where I grew up. And I came to ODU and got my master's degree, and I got it actually in school administration, higher ed. And so my goal was to eventually work on a college campus, preferably in leadership development of students. And then got a teaching job, and I taught middle school math for 17 years. And we're going to talk about doing what you love. And I loved it. I love working with students, but was it my passion? No. And the whole time that I was teaching, I still volunteered with my sorority, and I would do leadership development and met this author, Steve Farber, which I'm going to talk about today. And we would do this leadership development with our sorority women. And he actually ended up training me so that I could go out and do his talks because I was cheaper than him coming in and do the talks for him. And that's kind of where it started. I walked in one day, quit my teaching job, and started working for Steve Farber full time, doing college campus visits. And it was a very scary move, but I knew it's what I wanted to do. Did that for a few years and then ended up getting the job at ODU. And it's like all of my worlds collided, and I've actually found the perfect place and position for me. What I do at ODU is I actually work with all the math and science majors who are also getting a teaching license. So it's like all of my worlds have come together in one place, and I advise them and work with them and make sure that they're on task to graduate within an appropriate amount of time. I really kind of push them out the door. It's like, come on, let's go. They would probably stay here for years if they would let me, if I would let them. And I really try to say, let's go, come on. So that's kind of what my job does here. And I really enjoy working with them. I feel like it's the marriage of my 17 years of being a math teacher with all of my volunteer work and leadership development skills on a college campuses together in one place. And so I really enjoy it. So that's kind of my little story of how I got to where I am. So I told you a little bit about Steve Farber. I'm so bad with them mouths. Let's see. There we go. Oh, heavens, what I do. There we go. All right. So Steve Farber, and his book is The Radical Leap, just so you can see what it is. The first time I read it, it was literally, I got it at a leadership conference and read it on the airplane home. So it's an easy read, and it's not a normal leadership book. It's more like a story. It's kind of like a fictional tale that he lays his leadership development out in this story, which I like better. And even more importantly, it's a leadership guide that I actually believe in. It's something that I get it. And I'm like, yeah, I believe in everything that he talks about. And so I'm not trying to sell you books, but if you are interested, I wanted y'all to see what it looked like. Let's see. But here's Steve. And I'm going to let you hear a little bit about him and his thoughts on leadership.
To the point where we use the word leadership too loosely. We use it as a label or a title that we slap on ourselves or we slap on other people without giving a whole lot of thought to what the implications really are, and with giving virtually no thought to what the personal stakes are in all of this. So let's just dispel a myth or two about leadership right out of the gate. First of all, leadership has got nothing to do with what you call yourself. It's got nothing to do with your position or your title. It's got nothing to do with where you sit on the company's organizational chart. It's got nothing to do with whether or not people report to you. And I'll try to be polite about this, but I've met some people over the years in my work that sit very prominently on their company's organizational chart, have very lofty and impressive sounding titles that still have, and this is the polite part, a bit of work to do, as far as their leadership goes. And I can't tell you how many people I've met that have no positional authority whatsoever. Nobody reports to them. They're not managers. They're not supervisors. They're right there on the front line doing the work, but yet they're great leaders by virtue of who they are, what they do, how they approach their work, how they approach their lives, and their ability to influence people around them to change things for the better. That's the kind of person that I've come to call the extreme leader. Regardless of what position or title they might happen to hold, the extreme leader is a person who, in my estimation, wholeheartedly steps into the act of leadership in order to change the nature of things for the better, in order to make things better, often at the risk of personal failure and personal sacrifice. That's the extreme leader. And, the phrase extreme leadership might sound a little bit suspect. It might sound like kind of a marketing thing or a branding thing. So, and I guess it is. If you want to accuse me of doing some of this marketing stuff with the phrase extreme leadership, you would not be entirely unjustified, I have to admit. But the real problem with the phrase extreme leadership is that it's a redundant phrase. There should be no reason to modify the word leadership with the word extreme. Because leadership, if we're really doing it, not just calling ourselves leaders, but we're really doing it, we're really making that wholehearted effort to change things for the better, that's already an extreme act. Leadership is intrinsically an extreme act because it's about the act of transformation in some way or another. It's taking nothing and turning it into something, taking something good, turning it into something extraordinary. It's about stretching and growing our own skills and capabilities as human beings and doing that for the people around us. I mean, this is already extreme stuff, right? So extreme leadership is really just another way of saying the real leader, real leadership, a person who puts themselves at risk in order to change their piece of the world for the better. And this exploration to discover what the implications of extreme leadership are for ourselves and how we can grow into that role more fully is, in my estimation, one of the most important explorations that we can take on as human beings nowadays. Pretty obvious to say we live in extreme times, and these are the times now more than ever that demand extreme leadership.
Okay, so now I have to remind you, now this is a workshop that I would do over a weekend with a college student. So we're going to do a quick overview because we're doing it in an hour. But for a radical leader, there's 4 pieces. They call it extreme leaders do it in a radical leap, and it's they cultivate love, L. They generate energy, and that's E. They inspire audacity, and that's the A. And then they provide proof, and that's the P. So we're going to talk about each of these 4 pieces just to do a quick overview so you can understand kind of the basis of it. So cultivate love, the first one. And I always love to bring in a quote. Brene Brown is another one I love. Love is beautiful when it's professed, but it's only meaningful when it's practiced. That's deep thoughts right there. But how do you cultivate love? And, we're not talking about cultivating love within a relationship. We're talking about cultivating love within an organization or in a business. And Steve talks about 2 things, that there are posers. And, you have love versus fear. And posers, and And you probably come across people that are leaders, but they're not truly leaders. And they are usually motivated by the fear of not being accepted or being exposed. And these are people that are just kind of in there saying, well, you should listen to me because I am the president of this organization, or I am the CEO of this company. But are they really doing what takes to be listened to, or are they just demanding your respect and not giving it? And that's the kind of poser that we're talking about. But what do you love what you do? And that's the key piece of this. If you don't love what you do, and that was one of the things that I had to realize as a teacher, I got to a point where I stopped loving coming to work every day. Was I truly being an effective teacher when I was dreading walking in the door of my classroom every day? And that's when you have to reevaluate, what are you doing? Do I love my organization and what it stands for? That's one thing I love about ODU. I love what ODU stands for. I go to a lot of college campuses still with the sorority. And a lot of college campuses will talk about, oh, we are so diverse. And you look in a room and they're not. But ODU walks the walks and talks the talk, and they actually are doing it. And they are, and we are. I mean, like, it's a great place to be. Do I love my colleagues and team? I work with some really awesome people. We love working together because we are all dedicated. And do I show the love? Do I show that love in the way I work? I show up, I'm present, I listen to my colleagues. Yes, we have disagreements, but we listen to each other and we don't discount each other. And that's a key piece to really showing love to each other is actually listening when people have a problem. How can I help you? I hadn't thought of that perspective. And you really have to cultivate love within an organization. One of the famous Steve Farber quotes is, do what you love in the service of people who love what you do. And this is me and my husband down here. And when I got married, I married into being a Redskin fan, now Washington football team, soon to be, I don't know, on February 2nd. Okay. And part of that was, working here, we have season football tickets. And I was a Taylor Heineke fan because I'd watched him play football here. And then then miraculously, he's on the Washington football team, and amazingly. So do what you love in the service of people who love what you do. You know that Taylor Heineke loves football. And to watch him, it is an amazing thing to watch. You see the passion that he has on that field. But what does it mean to do it in the service of people who love what you do? I love watching him, and I love that he's on the team that I support. But if you think about it, this season, oh my God, I can't even think of his name. Tom Brady and his team, the Buccaneers, the Washington football team beat them. I mean, they were the reigning Super Bowl champions, and the Washington football team, with their backup quarterback of Taylor Heineke, beat them. Well, guess what? The Buccaneer fans did not love what Taylor Heineke was doing, so they did not love that. So it's do what you love in the service of people who love what you do, and that means not everybody is going to love what you do, because not everybody is going to love it. You're always going to have people out there that are against you, and you just have to understand that, accept it, and own it. Let's see. So the next one is generate energy. And John Wooden, who's a famous basketball coach, as a leader, you must be filled with energy and eagerness, joy, and love for what you do. If you lack enthusiasm for your job, you cannot perform to the best of your ability. Industriousness is unattainable without enthusiasm. And what generates energy? Number one, love. And we've already talked about love. My favorite is when you work with a group and you're sitting here talking about different ideas, and you come up with a fantastic idea and everybody is in on it. And it's like an enthusiasm and an energy that is just amazing. And that is just an energy you cannot recreate. And that is one of the greatest things that happens when you get to work with a group. Other ideas, noble principles, when you have interesting work, when you have exciting challenges, when you have a great vision for the future. I feel like we have a new college president. He's got a great vision for what he wants ODU to be in the future. And that's giving us a great energy on campus right now. Purging energy suckers. I also coach cheerleading. Y'all probably think I do 100,000 things. I also coach a cheerleading squad at a high school in Virginia Beach. And right now I got a team that we have 14 on the team, and I probably have 10 that are really dedicated. And I got 4 that don't always show up to practice. Probably next year, they're not going to be making the varsity team. There are 4 that are younger, probably could have stayed on JV this year, and next year they might. So that's purging the energy suckers. I almost would rather have a smaller team of dedicated people that are bringing energy to it than having a larger team with 4 people that are sucking the energy. So that's energy, generating energy. Inspiring audacity. Agreed, a leader's greatest obligation is to make possible an environment where people can aspire to change the world. And Steve Farber talks a lot about defining the world. We have lowercase w world and we have uppercase W world. And I love this picture because this little girl, this is her world. That's the lowercase w world. And, people say, well, I can't change the world, but you can. You can change your world. You might be able to do something and change your club, your organization, or, something right here on ODU's campus. It may not affect something in Scotland, and that's okay, but it might eventually, it might grow. You might have something that grows and grows and grows, and then it'll affect the world, capital W. But you have to understand that there's a difference between lowercase w and uppercase W. So aspiring audacity, pursue the OSM. We're going to talk about OSM in just a minute. Act as though your every action has a direct impact on the world. And you have to sometimes think about, we talk about collateral damage, like if I do this today, how is that going to affect somebody else or this? Or, there's other things that are going to happen and how will that affect it? One of the big things I do with my students in Monarch Teach, do what you say you will do. If you say you're going to show up to something, do it. If you say you're going to do an assignment, do it. Especially when they're working in group work. It's one of my biggest pet peeves when people do not say what they will do. Don't judge yourself based on the outcome of your efforts. I just told you I was a cheerleading coach, and I just finished watching the 2nd season of Cheer on Netflix. And Trinity Valley is the opposing team, and the coach comes off of the stage, and I love it because he says, I don't care what the judges say. I know that you just performed that routine to the best of your ability. It was, flawless. I don't care what the judges say. I know that you've done a phenomenal job. You feel it. Let's remember this. I mean, of course, they end up winning the competition. I hope I didn't spoil it for anybody. But that feeling of don't judge yourself based on the outcome of your efforts. You need to be judging yourself on how you feel. Did I do my best? That's all that matters. And then never try to do it alone. When you do work in a team, things end up always better. So this is what the OSM is, and I'm going to play you a video and let Steve explain it to you in his own words. Can y'all hear it?
It's like extreme huge, as if that weren't extreme enough, right? Takes place on the same kind of track. The difference is that the skeleton board is the size of a roasting. And they go down, they lie on their stomachs, they go down head first, chin about 6 inches off the ice, screaming down the mountain a million miles. That's why it's called extreme sport. They're extreme. Nuts, right? So I'm not suggesting that you have to take a skeleton board to get it, but imagine for a moment if you wanted to, okay? It's not on TV, but it's cool. You can track yourself, but you head out to the mountain, you take the lift up to the top of the mountain, you got your board in your hand, and up to this point, man, you are stoked, you can't wait to hit this slope. And then you get up to the edge of the track and you look down. It's a little different from up here on top of the mountain, isn't it? So now you're having second thought because there's no angle on this track. It's a straight drop into this and all. Your hands start to shake, heart's beating in your chest, sweat break out of your floor, then you catch your breath, but you give yourself a pep talk. You get into position, you push off, and before you know it, bang, you're going a million miles an hour. You suddenly realize that you are now 100% committed to this thing, right? that point in the process, there are two words that come to mind. What are they? That's Deb. Nice job, class. Very good. M stands for moment. Got the idea? All right, so what I'm suggesting is the OSM is the natural built-in indicator that we have as human beings that we're doing or about to do something that is extraordinary. And this is just natural. It's part of the human experience. There is no such thing as any significant progress without the OSM. There's no such thing as taking on a big pledge without the OSM. And it's this weird mixture of fear and exhilaration, right? People really believe this. You know this from your own experience. Anytime you've taken on a challenge where you had to stretch and grow, as excited as you were about it, tell me there was no OSM. Anytime you made a commitment to somebody that had to step up to it, as much as you believe in it, tell me there was no OSM. I'll give you a very simple example. Day-to-day life. Well, not day-to-day, but from life. How many of you here are married? Can I see your hands, please? All right. Think back for a moment to your wedding day. Tell me there was no OSM on your wedding day. I mean, sure, this is the love of your life and all that, but you tell me that when you were saying I do, you weren't also thinking, oh, shit. I mean, tell me that wasn't happening. I've had that experience twice, as a matter of fact. I know it's good. It's a natural thing. All right? So what I'm suggesting is that it's a natural part of the human experience, but it is most significant and most important in the act of human. There's no such thing as without the frequent experience of the Lord. If it's not scaring you, you're not doing it yet. So push it to the point where it scares you a little bit. Now you know that you're in the game. And this is very counterintuitive, right? Because we're hardwired to interpret the OSM as a sign that something is wrong, because frankly, sometimes it is. But oftentimes, it's actually a sign that something is right. I saw Jimmy Shea interview the day after he won the gold medal. The question he was asked was, remember the first time? And his answer was such a beautiful description of the OSM. He said, oh yeah, I remember the first time I went down that line, I was way too fast, and I realized I just made the biggest mistake of my life. When I got to the bottom, I couldn't wait to get back up and do it again. Everything in his brain was telling him that the reality was, at that moment, this is bad. That's what he was thinking. He wasn't thinking to himself, my, what an exhilarating experience. So glad I came out to the mountain. I should be a gold medalist. He was thinking, I'm a moron. He was thinking. But there was no way he was ever going to win a gold medal, or anybody else that's ever won one would ever win without that. Same thing. Same thing. Really trying to change the world. Really cultivate love, generate energy, pulling ourselves accountable for all the truth. OSM is not there. Not doing it.
All right. So one of the things that I always go back to is I remember the day that I sat in my principal's office and I had decided I need to do something different. And I had gotten very comfortable. I was a math teacher for 17 years. I'd gotten very comfortable. I had health insurance and, everything in my life was set up and I could pull lesson plans off of the shelf and do them with my eyes closed. And I knew that I needed to make a change in my life. And I think about what if I hadn't have done that? I would probably still be in that classroom teaching math today. And it would have been fine. I mean, I would still be fine, but I would not be as happy as I am today doing what I love. And so there are moments that you have to just grab yourself by your bootstraps and just go for it. And that's what an OSM is. And you will remember those moments. There are moments that you're like, I can't believe I just did that. And so, and the last piece is providing proof. So Abraham Lincoln said that some achieve great success is proof to all others that can achieve as well. I love those. All right. So how do you provide proof? Well, there's two ways. You have to prove it to others, but you have to prove it to yourself as well. So proving it to others, you align your actions with your words. What have I done today to show my commitment to my colleagues and my organization? And what will I do tomorrow to demonstrate the power of my conviction? They're very important. Just always, and it goes back to the first one, align your actions with your words. And then proving it to yourself. You have to think about what OSMs in my past resulted in being where I am today. A lot of times I think back to kind of the happenstance as to how I ended up, going to Longwood and coming to ODU. It was like mistakes that I kind of like, let me just go here and do this. But it all ends up in a reason why you end up where you are. The lessons that I have learned from my past mistakes. And I tell my children all the time, I'm like, as long as you learn from your mistake, it's not a mistake anymore. It just becomes experience. So don't leave anything in your past as a mistake. Just learn from it, and then it's just experience. And you just move on from it. And then what would I change in spite of my particular success? One of the big pieces of my job in Monarch Teach is I have to recruit math and science majors in the College of Science every semester to try our classes. Think about teaching. Have you thought about what you're going to do after you graduate? Just take one class, try out teaching, see if it's something you might like. And we could have a season of doing really great recruiting, but I don't rest on my laurels. I sit there and I'm constantly thinking, how could I do what we did better? Even though we might have, recruited our largest class ever, I will constantly look back and say, okay, that worked, but could I tweak it and make it better? So it's always constantly reevaluating and making what you did in the past better. So, think of that. Oh, I always hit the wrong one. What did you do? And then the last piece of Steve Farber's kind of thing is he carries what he calls a whoop pad, the wake up pad, with him around all the time. And I still do this today. Now, a lot of times my whoop pad ends up having my grocery list or things to do or things not to forget to do today, emails that I have to respond to. But a lot of it is, he says, scan. Sometimes you might see something, scan, eavesdrop, ponder, talk about it, try something new, read. And I take the train often to either Philadelphia or New York City when I have to go up there for work or for, conferences or whatever. I like to take the train because I can sit there, you got internet, you don't have to drive yourself. I don't know. It's if you haven't ever taken Amtrak, it's a lovely experience. You should try it. I'm sold on the train. But anyway, I just love it. But I love it because I can sit and read and catch up on things that I haven't had time to do. And it's really kind of dedicated time for me. And I will take notes. I might, there was one trip that I had picked up a Philly newspaper, and there was a huge article about STEM educators and things that they were doing in the Philadelphia area with STEM educators. If I hadn't been on the trip, I would never have picked up that article. And it was nice that I could bring it back, and I wrote some notes down, ended up tearing the piece out of the paper and brought it home. But, these are things that you do with the wake up pad as you're able to keep these notes. A lot of times, one of my bosses, I'm like, I read it somewhere. He's like, Julie, you read so much. And I'm like, I know, but I can't ever remember where I read it because I just write notes down that they doing this at so-and-so. And he's like, where did you read it? I'm like, I don't know where I read it, but I wrote it down, so, but you're able to keep notes and refer to it. Great ideas. Like I hear about ideas that people are doing for recruitment tactics, in different organizations, and I tailor it. How can I use it for Monarch Teach, or how could we use that for sorority recruitment? And so you can pull it in and use it for different ideas. But it's just an idea. Honestly, I will my whoop pad as I keep it. A lot of times it is my grocery list. I will say, I can't forget to pick up, bread at the store today. But every now and then you get it'll have a great page or two that are like deep thoughts of my travels and pages of great things. I brought y'all, I bring it to my students at Monarch Teach, and we had these printed up. So I brought some for y'all because I want y'all to have a whoop pad. It's very important. And I brought a few for y'all if you wanted them. And then I think we're almost to the end. I went really fast, guys. Okay. So this is my absolute favorite leadership quote. Like I use it every presentation I ever give. So confidence is going after Moby Dick in a rowboat and taking the tartar sauce with you. If you do not have confidence, you can have all the love and everything else, but if you don't have confidence to do what you need to do, all of the training is not worth it. You've got to have your confidence in yourself to go out there and do what you need to do. And then there's my information. You are more than welcome to email me or call me. You can find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, even Twitter. I'm not on Twitter as much as I should be, but please feel free to contact me if you have any questions, or if there's anything you want to ask me more about, or if you are a math or science major and you'd like to learn about Monarch Teach, I'd love to tell you more about Monarch Teach also. Do y'all have any questions while we're here? Do what? If no, I actually have like, it's like a small, the leather bound, it fits in my purse with like the journal things. That's what I use. So, yeah, I do. I use those. And I'm really bad. My husband gets on me because we moved like 2 years ago and I literally had like 15, 20 of them. And he's like, why do you need to hold on to them? I'm like, yes, because I don't know when I might have to refer back to something that I need. I'm like, I will go back and look at old ones. Yes. Some of our students do end up becoming college educators, yes. But the first step is, as an undergraduate, you're not going to be a college educator. I only work with undergraduate students, so our focus is getting them to the teaching license and being a middle or high school certified teacher license. Do some of them end up? Yes. And some of them get their teaching license will probably, like I have one student right now that is teaching math in, I think he's in Suffolk, but he's working on his master's degree. I could see him postdoc, like getting his doctorate, and then ended up back here teaching. So yes. And Steve actually will talk about that. When you do hit that piece where you're burnout, it's time to change. And that's kind of one of your OSM moments. You have to, and that's when you're providing that proof to yourself. If you're not proving it to yourself and you get to that point where you're not continually checking in with yourself, and even sometimes checking in with your colleagues, like, hey, am I still here? Am I present? Am I doing what you need me to do? Then it's time, it's time to move. It's time to change. He talks a lot. He talks a lot about sometimes you need to then maybe readjust your view and start focusing on building who's going to replace you, because you've lost your edge or your extreme, and it's almost a good thing to then build the person up behind you that's going to replace you to do better than you did. And it's not people, he's got a whole book. It's called Greater Than You, or Greater Than I. And it's about people want to feel like they want to leave a job and that nobody can do the job better than they did. But the true leader builds a legacy by building the people behind them to come up and do the job better than they did it. So to get your teaching license. So it used to be at ODU that you would do your 4 years, like let's say you're a biology major, you would do your 4 years, get your biology degree, and then you would have to come back and do an additional year and a half to get your teaching license. What's unique about the Monarch Teach program is we've now incorporated it into the undergraduate degree. So we have our education classes actually have math and science content in them. So now you can technically do it within the 4 years of your undergraduate degree. So that was a huge change. The program started probably 5 years ago. It was right before I came to the faculty. So that was a huge shift in kind of mindset. I think my hardest My hardest part of leadership, I served on my sorority's national council. And I think the hardest part of leadership is when as a group, we would make a decision and I didn't agree with it. But then as a group, you have to back the decision of the group. And then to go out into the, then to go out into the rest of the world and people would ask you questions and it wasn't what you believed, but you had to project it as this is what we came to as a group decision and I believe in it. And it's hard, but you have to understand that when you're one of 7 or one of 9 that are making these decisions, you have to respect the decision making of the body. And because if you don't respect it, then you're not honoring the group, and then you're almost becoming the energy sucker, and you just kind of have to smile and this is the decision of our group and I support it, and we would always make talking points, and I would just kind of stick to the talking points, and it was very hard to not say, but I really think, but I would stick. I'm like, this is why we have decided it this way. So, and I really would try to not, my face tells the story a lot of times. And it was really hard to not, to make sure that I didn't tell what I was thinking with my facial and really let my words in my face say the same story. So that's probably my biggest challenge in leadership, is when I don't believe what I'm saying. It's easy when you believe it. It's easy to bring it, present it, and sell it. But if you don't believe it, you're kind of like, yeah, all right. So. Well, my daughter is actually a senior at Longwood, and she just served her sorority as her chapter president. And one of her challenges was, here they are, they're my sister, but I have to then discipline people. And I said, you have to understand that people will come to you with a complaint, an argument, whatever. They're not coming to you as a person, they're coming to you as the president, and really understanding that you wear different hats in the organization and understanding what hat you have on. And you have to sit here and think, are they coming to me because I'm the president, or are they coming to me because I'm Madison, or are they coming to me because I'm my roommate? And really understanding when somebody is talking to me, what hat do I have on in their eyes? And I think that if you can figure that out first, then you've mastered so many things. And and I would tell her, like, she had an instant where she had to discipline her roommate, and she went to her and she was like, look, you can't do this. She's like, and I said, go to your roommate and say, as the president, I'm going to tell you, you can't do this, and this is your sanction, blah, blah, blah. But as your roommate, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to help you get through this. We're going to fix it. We're fine. And make her understand that your relationship as a roommate is fine, that you have to do this as the president. And she said, Mom, that made all the difference in the world. And it helped her with her roommate relationship, and that she could still do the presidency also. So I think that's the number one thing as college students, understanding that piece of it. It amazes me the training that happens at the freshman year. I sat through orientation and some of the conversations that student affairs has right off the bat. Like, as a freshman, I never had to have any of that. That was not anything that we had. And it amazes me. It amazes me how aware students are now. And I'm thankful for it. I'm very thankful for it. I'm also thankful as far as FERPA, how aware students are of their own privacy rights. I have to work with our students to work with mentor teachers, and I can't just give our students' email address to a mentor teacher because it's their privacy. So I have to just say, oh, here is your mentor teacher in Norfolk Public Schools email address. It's up to you to give them, where before I probably would have said, here, just shared everybody's email, everybody's phone number, let's all. But but it's thankful. I'm thankful that we're aware of that now. So it's different things that you have to think about. Oh my heavens. My pleasure. It was fun.